Don't forget to like, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to stay connected with us for more insights and stories that can change your perspective. It all began as a simple office party, a gathering meant to ease the tension after a long year of relentless work. Steve, my husband, had been anticipating this event for weeks. It was the kind of thing he believed could help him reconnect with his colleagues, relax without the usual demands of the office, and perhaps rediscover a balance that had long eluded him. Yet for me, the excitement was fleeting. There's something about office parties, something too orchestrated in their cheerfulness. People who barely acknowledge you during the week suddenly transform into the life of the gathering, their laughter forced, their interactions hollow. But Steve was so enthusiastic, so sincere in his desire for connection, that I figured it would be worth it, if only to support him. The venue was elegant in its simplicity, the lighting warm and intimate, the soft jazz melodies in the background adding a serene touch to the atmosphere. The tables were covered in appetizers so refined they seemed almost unnecessary. As I scanned the room, I recognized a few familiar faces, but most of the attendees were Steve's colleagues, people I had met only briefly. There I stood, quietly by his side, exchanging pleasantries with those around me, careful not to draw attention to myself. It was a role I'd become used to in these situations, observing, listening, and feeling the subtle currents of unspoken interactions. That was when I noticed her. Her name was Carla. I'd heard Steve mention her a few times, always with a casual tone. She was a striking presence, tall, with dark hair cascading past her shoulders, and there was an undeniable magnetism about her. She was the type of woman who could command a room without trying, the kind of person who made it difficult not to notice her. And tonight, it seemed, her attention was drawn entirely to Steve. Her laughter was too loud, her touches too frequent. There was something in the way she positioned herself, always just a little too close, always reaching out to him with a familiarity that struck a dissonant chord in me. I couldn't put my finger on it, but my instincts whispered a warning. Still, I told myself it was nothing, just the way things were in these social settings. It wasn't until later, as the evening unfolded, that I began to understand why my unease lingered. As the night wore on, I retreated to a quiet corner, my glass of wine in hand, seeking solace from the crowd. The noise faded away, and I found a peaceful moment where I could observe, reflect, and regain some sense of calm. But then, as if on cue, she appeared beside me. Carla. She stood there, drink in hand, offering a smile that felt too rehearsed, too perfect to be genuine. "I hope you're enjoying yourself," she said, her voice smooth, almost too measured. Her eyes were calm, but there was something unreadable in them, as if her every word was carefully chosen. "It's fine," I replied, trying to keep the conversation light. "The food is good, and the atmosphere is pleasant." She glanced over at Steve, who was still deep in conversation with his colleagues across the room. "Steve's great, isn't he?" Carla said. "Always so easy to talk to. No wonder everyone at work loves him." I nodded, suppressing the unease building within me. "Yeah, he's a great guy. We've been together for a long time." She paused, her gaze lingering on Steve before turning back to me, her voice lowering as if sharing a secret. "You two make a wonderful couple," she said. "He's lucky to have you." There was a shift in her tone, a subtle undercurrent that hinted at something more. "But sometimes we all need a little excitement, don't we?" she added, her words hanging in the air like a silent challenge. My heart skipped. Was there a hidden meaning behind her words? Before I could respond, her phone rang, and with a polite excuse, she walked away. But as she disappeared into the crowd, the weight of her words remained, like an echo I couldn't escape. I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted, that what seemed like a casual conversation had somehow uncovered a deeper truth. Yet, I pushed it aside, telling myself it was nothing. Carla was just being friendly, perhaps even a little too friendly, but nothing more. I looked for Steve, eager to reconnect with him, to dispel the uneasy feeling that had begun to gnaw at me. When I found him, still engaged in conversation with his colleagues, his face lit up as soon as he saw me. That smile, always so reassuring, made me feel safe, grounded in the reality we had built together. Yet tonight, it felt different. There was an undercurrent of something unspoken between us, something I couldn't quite grasp. We made our way to the car as the party began to wind down, the hum of conversation fading behind us. The night was quiet, the weight of the day lifting with every step. As we drove home, I glanced at Steve, trying to read his expression. "So, how was the party?" I asked, keeping my tone light and trying to mask the tension inside. "It was good," he replied, his voice relaxed, his hands on the steering wheel. "Carla was really fun to talk to." In that moment, I understood that sometimes the things we fail to see are the ones that matter most. "She's got a lot of energy, don't you think?" Steve's words broke the silence, but they didn't lift the weight from my chest. I smiled, though it felt more like an automatic response than a reflection of any true joy. "Yeah, she's something." I could hear the tension in my voice, even if Steve couldn't. He laughed lightly, oblivious to the undercurrent in our conversation. "I think she likes you, Mary. She said you were classy." A tightness gripped my stomach, a sense of unease settling in like an unwanted guest. "Did she?" I wondered. "Yeah, she's really nice," Steve continued, unaware of the storm brewing inside me. "It's rare to find someone so easygoing in the office. She has this natural way of making people feel comfortable." The words lingered in the air, their weight growing heavier with each passing second. It dawned on me that I wasn't the only one noticing Carla's attention. A sense of discomfort crept in, as if I were standing on the edge of something uncertain, something I couldn't yet name. The night of the party had left me feeling unmoored, like I had glimpsed a hidden truth I wasn't ready to confront. Days passed in a blur. I fell back into our routine. He went to work, and I stayed home, managing our life the way I always did. But something inside me had shifted. I found myself thinking about Carla far more than I should have. Every time I saw Steve laughing or chatting with someone, a part of me wondered if Carla was involved. I tried to convince myself I was simply overreacting, that I was being paranoid. But the doubt gnawed at me, lingering in the back of my mind, like a quiet storm waiting to break. It wasn't until a week later that the storm finally hit. I was on the phone with my sister, as I often was, catching up on life. As I moved through the kitchen, Steve's phone buzzed on the counter, the screen lighting up with a message preview from an unknown number. My curiosity, like a quiet whisper, urged me to take a look. I approached the phone and read the message that made my heart skip a beat. It was from Carla. "Hey Steve, I know this might be a little forward, but I really enjoyed our conversation the other night. Let's catch up soon. Just the two of us." The words themselves seemed harmless enough, but there was an undertone, a hidden message that made my pulse quicken. Why was she reaching out to him in this way? Why wasn't it a more casual, group-oriented message? 1,000 questions flooded my mind. What was going on? Was she trying to get closer to him? Had she been flirting with him all along? I stood there, frozen, trying to steady my breath. The familiar feeling of unease tightened in my chest. I knew I had to confront Steve, but the thought of approaching him with my suspicions filled me with dread. I didn't want to accuse him of something he hadn't done, but I also couldn't ignore the sinking feeling in my stomach. I took a deep breath and, without fully thinking, grabbed Steve's phone. I read the message again, my fingers trembling slightly. My heart pounded as I tapped out a quick reply to Carla, hoping it would give me some space to figure out what to do next. "Hey Carla, thanks for the message. Steve's really busy with work, but I'll let him know you reached out. Hope you're doing well." I pressed send and put the phone back down just as Steve walked into the kitchen. His expression was soft, unaware, and I forced a smile, trying to appear normal. "Hey, you okay?" he asked, his voice gentle, his curiosity evident. "Yeah, just checking something on your phone," I answered, my tone light, though I could feel the weight of the words pressing against my chest. "Everything's fine," he nodded, though his brow furrowed slightly. You sure? You don't look so sure." In that moment, I stood at a crossroads. I had to decide whether to bury the feelings rising inside me or confront the tension between us. I glanced down at the phone and the message from Carla, then met Steve's eyes. My voice was quieter than I intended when I spoke. She said she wanted to catch up with you," I said, my words hanging between us like a fragile thread. Steve blinked, momentarily confused. "What do you mean?" "She sent me a message." I nodded, trying to keep my composure. Yes, it was just a casual invitation, but it seemed a little more than that. The silence that followed felt suffocating. I could see Steve processing the information, the wheels turning in his mind. Finally, he sighed, the weight of the conversation settling between us, and slowly walked over to me. Gently, he took my hands in his. In that moment, I realized something fundamental. We can only move forward when we're willing to face the truths we may not be ready to accept. The real question was not about what Carla wanted, but about what I needed to confront within myself. "Mary, I had no idea you were feeling this way," he said, his voice soft but earnest. "Carla and I are just friends. I promise you she's a little forward sometimes, but there's nothing going on between us. I didn't realize it was making you uncomfortable." I stared at him for a moment, trying to read his expression. Was he being genuine, or was this just a well-practiced excuse? "Then why didn't you tell me about the message?" I asked. Try not to sound accusing, but failing a little. "I didn't think it was a big deal." Steve admitted she's always been a little more outgoing than most people in the office. "I didn't want you to think I was hiding anything, though. But after seeing your reaction, I realized I should have been more upfront about it." I wanted to believe him. I really did, but a part of me still felt unsettled, like something wasn't quite right. "I just don't want to feel like I'm being ignored or left out." I confessed, the vulnerability creeping into my voice. "It's like she's trying to get closer to you, Steve, and I don't know if I trust her intentions. I know you're a good man," but I trailed off, unsure of what I was even trying to say. It wasn't like I thought Steve was cheating on me, but the thought of Carla insinuating herself into our lives felt too familiar, too unnerving. Steve squeezed my hands, his gaze softening. "Mary, I love you. I only want to be with you. Carla is just a colleague, and I honestly didn't think it was a big deal. But if it's making you uncomfortable, I'll handle it. I'll make sure she knows this. There's nothing beyond friendship from me." I studied him for a moment, looking for any sign of insincerity. But all I saw was the man I married, the man I knew the doubt in my heart began to ever weigh. And I nodded slowly. "Okay," I said quietly, still unsure, but willing to trust him. "I just don't want to feel like I'm losing you." Steve smiled and pulled me into a hug. "You're not losing me, Mary. You'll never lose me." But deep down, a part of me wondered if there was more to Carla's intentions than either Steve or I. Realized the message was one thing. But how would things unfold from here? The next few days were strangely calm. Steve made an effort to keep me in the loop, more letting me know when Carla or anyone else from the office reached out to him. It helped, but the uneasy feeling never quite left. My mind kept playing back that night at the office party. The way Carla looked at Steve, the way she seemed to linger just a little longer than necessary. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something I wasn't seeing. It was the following Friday when the real test came. Steve and I had made plans to spend the evening at home, a quiet night in just the two of us. But as I was preparing dinner, his phone buzzed again. I glanced over, my heart skipping a beat, when I saw Carla's name flash on the screen. This time, it wasn't just a casual message, it was a photo. Steve had left his phone on the counter, and my curiosity got the best of me. I walked over and picked it up, unable to ignore the pull of suspicion. The photo was of Carla, taken at a cafe. She was smiling widely, looking carefree and happy. But that wasn't what caught my attention. What stood out was the message accompanying the photo. "Just had a coffee, and it reminded me of that night at the party. We would love to do it again sometime, maybe without the crowds." Next time I felt a chill run through me. My first instinct was to drop the phone, but I couldn't. Something about that message, the underlying suggestion, made my stomach twist. I wasn't imagining it. She was trying to make her move. I took a breath and placed the phone back down. Before Steve could walk in, I didn't know how to approach him. Would he see it the way I did, or was I just overreacting again? When Steve came in from the living room, I was still standing by the counter trying to compose myself. He looked at me, and I knew the moment I saw his face that something had shifted. "Is everything okay?" he asked, concerning his voice, as he noticed the tension in the room. I nodded, but it wasn't convincing. I felt my chest tighten. I saw Carla's message. I said, keeping my voice as steady as I could. Steve's expression flickered, and then he sighed. "Mary, Steve," I interrupted, my voice trembling slightly. "This is more than just friendly messages, isn't it?" I saw her message, and it wasn't just casual. "She's trying to get closer to you." Steve stepped closer, a deep frown forming. "Mary, I swear, she's just a colleague. There's nothing happening. You're reading too much into this," but the words felt hollow. I could see the frustration in his eyes, but I wasn't sure anymore if it was frustration at me or the situation. "Steve, it's not just a message anymore," I said, my voice quieter but firm. "It's the way she acts around you, the way she reaches out. I'm not blind, you know. It feels like she's pushing boundaries, and I don't think I can just ignore it anymore." He was silent for a long moment, and the silence in the room was deafening. Finally, Steve let out a long breath and rubbed his forehead. "I know I haven't been the best at keeping things transparent with you. I didn't think anything of it, because she's always been a little forward, but I see now how much it's bothering you, and I need to fix that. I promise I'll talk to her, make it clear that it's inappropriate." There was a part of me that wanted to believe him, but there was another part of me, the one that had seen Carla's subtle advances firsthand, that wasn't so sure. "I just need you to be honest with me, Steve," I said, feeling the weight of my own emotions pressing down on me. "I don't want to feel like I'm being played for a fool." "I'm not trying to play you, Mary," he said, his voice softer. Now the anger gone. "I don't want to lose you over this. I will talk to Carla and make sure she knows her place. You are the only one I care about." I looked into his eyes, searching for something, reassurance, sincerity, anything. And for a brief moment, I found it. I could see the man I married, the man who had promised me his loyalty. But even as I saw that, a part of me was still uncertain. Could I truly trust him, or was there something more beneath the surface? We spent the rest of the evening quietly, but the tension between us hadn't fully lifted. I knew Steve was trying, but my mind kept returning to Carla's message. What did it mean, and how far was she willing to go? The next morning after breakfast, Steve left for work, his usual routine. But as he walked out the door, I felt a strange sense of unease. I couldn't help but wonder if I had missed something, if there was more to this than I realized. I decided to take matters into my own hands. I wasn't going to sit back and wait for answers. I needed to know what was going on with Carla, and I needed to hear it from her. The days that followed were tense, but I knew I had to take control of the situation. I couldn't let doubt eat at me any longer. I needed to talk to Carla, myself, clear the air, confront her head-on. I wasn't sure how exactly I was going to approach it, but something deep inside told me it was the right thing to do. By the time Steve left for work on Monday, I had made up my mind. I had to speak with Carla. There was no other way to resolve the feeling of unease that had taken root in my heart. I reached out to her. My message was simple, direct. "Hi, Carla. I was hoping we could talk. I've been feeling a bit uncomfortable with the way things have been between us lately. Would you be open to meeting up?" The reply came almost instantly, and I could sense her readiness to meet. She agreed to meet me at a cafe nearby. Nothing fancy, just a quiet corner where we could have an honest conversation. I felt a wave of nervousness wash over me as I got dressed and prepared to leave. This wasn't going to be easy, but I knew I had to do it for the sake of my marriage. When I arrived at the cafe, Carla was already there, seated at a table by the window. She looked relaxed, sipping on a coffee and scrolling through her phone, her expression calm. But as soon as she saw me, she put her phone down and gave me a polite smile, which didn't quite reach her eyes. "Mary Kay, I wasn't sure if you were going to show up, she said, her tone light, almost playful. I sat down across from her, trying to steady my nerves. I wasn't sure if I should either, I replied, looking her directly in the eye. But I needed to talk to you about everything. Carla's smile faded slightly, and she leaned back in her chair, arms crossed. I'm not sure what you mean. Is this about Steve? Yes, it's about Steve, I said, my voice steady, but filled with the weight of everything that had been bothering me. I don't know what's been going on between you two, but the way you've been reaching out to him, it doesn't sit right with me. She raised an eyebrow but didn't interrupt. I took a deep breath and continued, feeling a sense of urgency. Now, I know we've never really talked much, but I can't ignore the messages the way you've been trying to get closer to him. It feels inappropriate. Carla's eyes softened a little, but there was a flicker of something behind them, something I couldn't quite place. I see, she said quietly. I didn't mean to make you feel uncomfortable. That was never my intention. For a moment, I was thrown off. I had expected her to be defensive, to deny it, or dismiss my feelings, but instead she seemed almost apologetic. Then why did you send him that message? After the party, I pressed, my heart racing. You said you wanted to meet up, just the two of you. It didn't seem casual. Carla looked down at her coffee for a moment, then met my gaze again, this time with a quiet sincerity. I'm not going to lie to you, Mary, she began, her voice softer. Now, I did enjoy talking to Steve at the party. He's kind, he listens, but I've never had any intention of breaking up your marriage. I respect that he's with you, and I can see how much you love each other. I should have known better than to blur the lines. I sat back in my chair, the weight of her words sinking in. Part of me wanted to be angry, but the other part of me felt relief. She was being honest with me, something I hadn't expected. I never meant to cause any trouble, she continued. I don't want to be the reason for any doubt between you and Steve. If I've crossed any boundaries, I truly apologize. It's just sometimes it's easy to forget that people in happy marriages are off limits. I'm sorry for not respecting that. I was silent for a moment, processing what she had said. It was an unexpected confession, one that I wasn't sure how to handle. Carla wasn't the villain I had painted her to be. She wasn't trying to steal Steve away from me. She had just let herself get a little too caught up in the attention he gave her. Thank you for being honest with me, I said at last, my voice quieter than before. I appreciate it, and I'm sorry for jumping to conclusions. Carla gave me a small smile. I understand it's natural to feel protective of what's yours, and Steve is a good guy. He is lucky to have someone like you. I nodded, feeling a weight lift off my chest. There was still a lingering sense of unease, but it wasn't about Carla anymore. It was about me and Steve, and how we needed to rebuild our trust. It wasn't going to be easy, but it was possible. As I left the cafe, I felt a strange sense of clarity. I wasn't sure what the future held, but I knew one thing. I needed to trust Steve. If I didn't, I would never be able to move forward. The conversation with Carla had helped, but now it was time to focus on my marriage, to focus on us. When I got home later that evening, Steve was already there, sitting on the couch waiting for me. He looked up as I walked in, his expression cautious but hopeful. How did it go? He asked quietly. I sat down beside him, taking a deep breath. We talked, and she was honest with me. There's nothing between you two, Steve, but I need to trust you more, and I need you to be more open with me. Steve nodded, a look of relief crossing his face. I can do that. I'll be better, I promise. I don't want to lose you over something so small. I smiled, feeling a warmth in my chest. I don't want to lose you either. We sat there in silence for a moment, the weight of the conversation hanging between us, but this time it felt different. It felt like we were both ready to move forward, to put the past behind us, and focus on rebuilding what we had. It wouldn't be easy, but it would be worth it.